Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening for some of you. My name is Saminas Balaina. I'm a communication and PR manager at Arifpay. To give you a little bit background about Arifpay, Arifpay is a financial institution licensed by the National Bank of Ethiopia. We providing digital payment solutions, Arifpos and Arifpay Gateway. We've been in the business for the last 1 year, and then we are the first point of sale payment system operator, which is PSO, with the payment solutions for smartphones, tolls, and QR payment terminals. We mostly working with MSME merchants, bankers. When I say bankers, Arifpay is a member of the national switch, which is the ET switch. So we work with all 28 bankers here in Ethiopia, and also customers, and working with two commercial partners. Today, we mainly focusing on the MSME aspect, mostly the MSME financing in Africa, and it's the missing middle in Ethiopia. So we do have two guests, Mr. Karl Manan from the Visa and Rafael from Equity Bank. So according to World Bank report, small and medium enterprises play a major role in most economies, particularly in developing countries, of course in Africa. But most banking credit facilities are mainly focusing on large-scale companies. Due to that, there is lack of access to finance for the MSMEs. Due to that, they have the big financial deficit and problems when it comes to MSME financing. So the challenges are many. So we are planning to go through them and then to discuss about the main issues and related activities. So without saying much, I'll give the floor to our esteemed guests, and then they will introduce briefly and precisely themselves. So I'll give the floor for Mr. Karl. Over to you, Mr. Karl.
Good afternoon, everyone. Saminas and Bernard, thank you very much for the invitation. I hope everybody can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Okay, so I joined Visa about 2 years ago, and my role at Visa for the Central and Eastern Europe, Middle East and Africa region is very much focused on supporting the business on the social impact element. And that means micro, small and medium enterprises, supporting individuals, supporting young entrepreneurs in getting the skills that they require to make sure that they can actually thrive in the digital economy. And in terms of background, I spent Addis Ababa at the Economic Commission of Africa in the office of Dr. Carlos Lopez. So I had the privilege of to be able to work in Addis and please get to understand a bit the ecosystem. And I've also spent a good amount of years in the international public sector, development sector, and then 5 years at EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank, before joining Visa. I'm pleased to be here today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Karl. It's great having you here. Over to you, Mr. Rafael.
Thank you, Sami. My name is Surafel. I'm an Ethiopian born and raised. Maybe Karl will remember me and Karl at some point in our lives met in our careers in EcoBank. I'm a career banker. After graduating from Bahar Dar University, I have joined the Ethiopian Customs Authority. I've worked there for a year. After that, I've worked in Zemen Bank, EcoBank, and currently I'm an Equity Bank. I see opportunities, niches, and have a close eye for the Ethiopian banking sector, whereby we see or find ways in which we can work with Ethiopian banks, financial institutions, and then international organizations, payments, and payment processors. So my role in Ethiopia is to find ways in which we can do things better and find opportunities for Ethiopian companies and organizations in doing things. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Rafael. So it's really great having you here as well. So I'll have some questions for both our esteemed guests, and then I'll give the floor for the audience to ask some questions so that they can actually engage with us as well. So as we all know, currently, the SME ecosystem represent about 90% of the business and more than 50% of the employment worldwide. And when it comes to Africa, even the number gets even higher. So what are the key challenges and opportunities for SMEs in accessing finance? So we've been talking about access to finance and accessibility, inclusivity, and whatnot. But what are the key opportunities and key challenges that we are seeing in the continental ecosystem? And over to you, Carl, to address this question.
Thank you very much. I think the first element is around access to markets. And I think often when we speak about MSMEs, the first thing that people speak about is actually access to finance. But if you think about the opportunity to access a larger market, it creates that momentum and those capabilities to actually needing the additional capital that is required to expand. So if you think about what are the number of clients that you have and you can actually continue to gain, and how do you expand your markets, that would be certainly the primary opportunity or the primary challenge that an SME needs to address. Once this is addressed, the second element is how do you ensure that people can actually pay for your services and you can actually pay your suppliers in that case. So if you think about it, the role of fintechs is extremely important in that ecosystem to allow for micro merchants that are not necessarily have the volume that is required for them to actually be directly supported by a bank to benefit from the work of fintechs to connect them to the markets. I think for me, those are the two important elements that fintechs need to be able to address. The third one is around the role that an African continental free trade area can offer to micro, small, and medium enterprises and being able to see beyond the borders. Of course, in Ethiopia, the addressable market is about 100 million people. So it's a large market in itself. But surely there are opportunities beyond the Ethiopian market to look at what's available in the rest of the continent and potentially the neighboring countries.
Thank you so much, Carl. So are there any examples, successful models for supporting SMEs that we can actually, raise it here and discuss about when it comes to SME financing?
Yeah, so there's work that is being done by Visa Foundation with funds like Arua Capital in Nigeria, for example, which is supporting other MSMEs to actually access to finance. So ultimately, we know that women have less access to capital than business that are run by men. And what Arua Capital does is to make sure that they can lend to small merchants that are in the ecosystem. One of the interesting examples that they have supported is an enterprise in Nigeria that provides a cooling system to women that sell fresh produce, for example. So you do have mechanisms on the continent that allow for that. And I think when we're speaking about the sort of micro and the access to finance, we often focus our attention on those that do not have access to finance. But there are many, because it's not 0% of merchants that don't access finance. Otherwise, then we have a problem. But we don't often focus on the number of merchants that are actually accessing credit or accessing financing. And we should be able to learn from the successes that those that have been able to access finance and help those that are not able to do so to actually get them. Is it the skills issue that needs to be addressed, for example? Or is it an ability to write a proper business proposal and so on and so forth? So these are the kind of elements that one needs to be able to figure out, to really think about, is it really an issue of not accessing finances? And I'm not saying that it's easy to access finance, but there are mechanisms that exist on the continent today to be able to support. And a lot of the development bank, for example, are doing the same. And fintech, earlier in my previous response, of how fintechs now are also helping small merchants to actually access finances.
Thank you so much, Carl. You have raised key points, for instance, the ACFTA, because we are actually looking forward to the implementation of the ACFTA, because we are hoping that the ACFTA, which is the African Continental Free Trade Area, will bring more access to market for the local companies, most importantly for SMEs. To give an example, for instance, now Ethiopia is well known by the coffee that we are farming here, but it's not something easy to get it somewhere in the West Africa. And if there's something that we actually looking forward to get from West Africa, maybe cacao, it's not something easy to get it here in eastern part of the continent. So I think that that's something Africa needs. So Rafael, so you are here representing Equity Bank, and I know the banking sector is not yet open for international market, but you guys have a representative office. So what exactly are you guys doing here, and in terms of day-to-day operation? Do you guys have any communication or relationship or working, platform with the local bankers or the national bankers? Tell us about why Equity Bank is here now as representative office.
Okay. Our role as Equity Bank in Ethiopia is first is we plan to come as a commercial bank in Ethiopia. So until then, until when the government allows us to be an operational bank, we are here to support financial institutions. For example, we work with almost 15 financial institutions in Ethiopia, supporting with the trade finance needs in the country. We support them with the currency dealing needs in the country. We support them with confirmation lines. That's one of the lines that we are working with the FIs. The other line of business that we work with is with the Ethiopian fintechs. So we support them in providing them with payment gateway solutions. We participated in the collection of the crowdfunding for the Ethiopia Great Renaissance Dam. We had provided the payment gateway whereby one of the Ethiopian fintechs can use our payment gateway to collect crowdfunding or to collect donations on behalf of Ethiopian banks. We try to find solutions for Ethiopian Airlines in their ticket sales and other solutions. We have proposed fuel hedging solutions to Ethiopian Airlines. We have proposed coffee hedging solutions to Ethiopia Coffee Exporters Association. So our role on the ground is to find ways in which Ethiopian entities can do things better. So we work with FIs, multinationals, regional corporates, and international organizations in trying to find solutions for some of the things that Ethiopian banks cannot do. But we don't do that alone. We do it in collaboration with Ethiopian banks, as we don't have the commercial banking license. So these are some of the things that we are trying to do until then, when we get commercial banking license and be a commercial bank to support the Ethiopian entities.
Thank you, Surafi. So for your information, and for those who are not somehow maybe not aware about the current situation here in Ethiopia, the National Bank of Ethiopia is now about to provide to give a license for international banking entities to come in. But here in Ethiopia, they are preparing all the necessary documents, like licensing documents. So hopefully by soon, we're going to see more international bankers like Equity Bank to come in and to join the Ethiopian financial sector, which is it's a great thing. So maybe to add on that, Equity Bank, is it only working in Kenya, or do you have a footprint in other African countries, maybe, so that give us a little bit clue about the way how you guys enter to new markets? Is there any good example or experience so that you can actually tell us about the way you enter the new markets?
Okay. First, allow me to briefly present about Equity. So Equity Group Holding PLC is a non-operating holding company with a banking subsidiaries in Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, Uganda, South Sudan, and DRC, and the CRO office in Ethiopia. And then we have a non-banking subsidiaries in Kenya that are engaged in providing investment banking, stock brokering, insurance, custodial services, payment services, and telecom service. Equity Group Holding PLC is listed at the Nairobi Stock Exchange and other regional exchanges with a market capitalization of $1.2 billion And then its subsidiaries comprising a recording consolidated asset base of $11.6 billion and a deposit volume of $8.4 billion. So currently we have around 18.5 million customers all over our subsidiaries, with 358 branches, more than 67 agents, more than 800,000 pay equity merchants. We have around 42,000 POS and 683 ATMs all over the country. So we have been growing in different countries. Maybe if you allow me to tell you about the recent acquisition that we did in Rwanda. So in June 15, we have acquired an additional bank in Rwanda, 91.9% stake in a bank by the name of Compagnie Generale de Bank in Congo, in DRC. We already had a bank in DRC, but we have added this bank by paying $51 million, $51.9 million to be exact. So this, it's a binding agreement with the government of Rwanda, Rwanda Social Board, and other investors to acquire 91.93% of the share capital. Equity Bank had to hide. We bought a new bank in DRC, BCDC, by acquiring 6.53%. Had to hide. We bought a new bank in DRC, BCDC, by acquiring 6.53% of DRC. So now DRC, we're the #1 bank providing banking services. So Equity Bank has a plan called the Africa Recovery and Resilience Plan. This Africa Recovery and Resilience Plan has a plan to serve 100 million customers by the end of 2025. We plan to be in 15 countries by end of 2025. So our plan is to provide support for food, agri, manufacturing, logistics, trade and investments, MSME, social and environmental transformation, and technology. This had enabled us to serve the African communities very well. We rank #1 in most of the countries that we are present. Almost 95% of our transactions in Kenya are digital. This tells you that we focus on digital banking as a key pillar. And these are the things that we are currently doing in the countries that we are present. So I think this is in brief of Equity Bank.
Thank you so much, Surafil. So, like Surafil said, they are hoping to join the Ethiopian market. So the Ethiopian economy is somehow it's under reform. Now we even have a new telecom service provider, which is Safaricom from our neighboring country, Kenya. So maybe, Carl, so with all this economic reform here in Ethiopia, so is there any plan from the visa to use this on opportunity to work with the MSMEs here in Ethiopia? Are there any initiatives? I know the visa initiative.
You will have the Visa Everywhere initiative that has been announced recently when our global chairman was in, when our regional president was in Addis Ababa with the head for Sub-Saharan Africa. So Visa Everywhere initiative focuses on identifying key fintechs in different ecosystems. So we had, for example, the final in South Africa last week, and there's a fintech called Vuleka that won the South African prize for, and they got a check of $50,000. Last year, we have Thriver Greek in Nigeria that won the global final for Visa, and it's a fintech out of Nigeria that supports farmers. And about 2 weeks ago, there was an article that talked about 500,000 farmers that they helped across Kenya and Nigeria. So Visa Everywhere initiative is coming to Ethiopia to strengthen the fintech ecosystem in the country. The second one, which is coming, is She's Next, which is an initiative that focuses on women-led entrepreneurs. On women-led businesses and supporting those businesses to actually advance in in line with what we've been talking about from the SME perspective. So these are the two key initiatives, but of course, Visa has been a partner of Ethiopia in supporting different financial institutions in providing them with the technology required to make payment accessible to more, and certainly drive and support the digitization process that is ongoing in the country.
Thank you so much, Kirk. So for the audience, if you have any questions, be prepared. And I'm somehow wrapping up my questions, so I'll give you a chance to ask some of the questions. And there is one question coming in from our audience, from Elka. So let me read it. How can fintechs help in filling the financing gap of MSMEs? Are there any areas of collaboration between fintechs and Visa or Equity Bank, particularly in the areas of MSME financing? Maybe, Carl, over to you to address this question.
So that's probably better for Equity being a bank, because Visa is not a financial institution. It's a technology company. By enabling, for example, fintechs, they can then work with the credit providers and through different mechanisms, like a scoring, for example, and say, okay, we're going to award X amount of credit to MSME. So I think I'll leave that one to my former colleague at EcoBank and then now at Equity Bank to take this one.
Okay, maybe
over to you. So
allow me to tell you our experience that we are doing in Kenya. So those ladies who are engaged in selling groceries, or what do you call vegetables, we call them the gulit services. So in Equity, we have a lending opportunity for them. It's an overnight lending opportunity. We call them mama bogas. For those mama bogas, we have a lending opportunity like for $100, an overnight lending. So we can give them that $100. They will use that $100 to go to buy these groceries or these vegetables. They will sell it. They will make their money, and then return back the money overnight. So in collaboration with fintechs and even with our own selves and then with our technology platforms, we have lending opportunities for individuals, including mothers who are engaged in selling vegetables and supporting their families. So Equity has a product that will serve not only MSMEs, but also individuals who are engaged in doing trading down to a point where a mother tries to survive and help her families. So we have our own wing, our own fintech wing called FinServe. Our FinServe wing has the capability of providing payment gateways and then finding solutions for lending opportunities for individuals who are doing an MSME area or in any areas where we can support. So MSME financing is one of our key areas of working. That is why we have set up a different wing called FinServe. That FinServe is supporting MSMEs in Kenya as we speak.
Thank you so much, Rafi. So if you guys have any questions, this is the right time for you to ask. You can raise your hand so that I can actually, give you a floor. Anyone?
Maybe one thing I need to add in regards to Equity. Equity's vision, so our vision is, let me read it. It's championing the society of the people of Africa. So when we say we are the champion, we champion the socioeconomic prosperity of the people of Africa. Our role is to find solutions for all people of Africa in making them prosper in the land where they are. So even our vision, our purpose and mission statements really tells that we are there to serve individuals, MSMEs, and Africans to prosper in Africa.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Rafi. If there is anyone who wants us to ask before I jump into another question. Anyone? Okay, thank you, Kala Kurma. So there's one question. Let me read it. As you have mentioned earlier, Visa is reinforcing its commitment to expanding digital payment in Ethiopia by two new initiatives: the Visa Everywhere Initiative, VEI, FinTech Competition, and the She's Next Women's Empowerment Initiative. Are there any details that you can share with us, such as when it will be launched, what it will look like, and the amount of investment from Visa going into these initiatives? I think this is for that.
Yes. At the moment, I don't have an exact date, but I can give you an indication of what we're doing in other markets at the moment. So in the GCC, which is a Gulf Cooperation Council area, we have She's Next, that is in all 6 GCC countries, with the top prize for the winning SME or MSME to be $50,000. I don't know the details of the one that will happen in Ethiopia, given that it was announced, I think, sometime last month. For Visa Everywhere Initiative, what you have to keep in mind that those 2 initiatives are designed to be in collaboration with local partners and ensuring that it's actually in addition to what's happening in the ecosystem and not sort of a standalone operation in the market. That's not the idea, because remember, Visa, being a technology company, has to rely on partners to actually make this investment work. So if you think about the fintech that is run by Bernard, by using Visa's technology, they enable them to do certain things in the market that collaboration allows to happen. So it's the same principle behind these 2 initiatives on Visa Everywhere and also She's Next. I can certainly put the links to the initiatives so you can read a little bit more on them. But just one thing to remember, this initiative are designed to enable the ecosystem that already exists in the market. They're not standalone.
Thank you so much, Kurt. So there's another question coming in from Mr. Daniel Ayalio. For Surafe, how can policymakers ensure that MSMEs have access to affordable finance? This is for you, Mr. Surafe.
Okay. The first thing is the things currently, some of the fintechs in the country that are doing in regards to rating of companies or when banks request collateral for every loan that they disperse. So things that have been done in other East African countries is different, whereby companies are rated based on the performance they provide, based on the financial statements, based on P&L and everything. So I think government needs to make sure that, I think we need to start from the microfinance institutions, whereby microfinance institutions need to be encouraged to find ways where they will lend to MSMEs without providing collateral, by providing ways in which funds are protected. That can be done. 2, banks currently, I think the total number of loans that have been dispersed in the total number of banks is not more than 400,000. So they need to find a way where banks can finance MSMEs. Government can, or the policymakers can dedicate a certain percentage of the loan portfolio to be dedicated to MSMEs. That way, we'll try to enforce or find ways in which we can support MSMEs. If the number is set, the financial institutions will definitely find a way where they can finance MSMEs and can make loans and finance accessible and also affordable to those institutions.
Thank you, Surafe. Like you said, collateral, the main issue in the financial sector when it comes to inclusivity, it's hard for most MSMEs to have collateral so that they can actually get the finance what they need to invest in those companies. It's one of the key challenges that you mentioned. So at the market, Mr. Khan already led to links for you to access it and to learn more about the VEI and the next initiatives. You can find it on the chat box. Thank you so much, Karen. So there is another question from Mr. Daniel as well for Mr. Carl. What role can technology play in the improving access to finance for MSMEs?
So one of the key aspects of accessing finance has to do with data. what kind of, and specifically cash flow, for example. That would be one. So technology allows you to record electronically your cash flow. It's visible to the financial institution that you're working with, or the fintech that you're working with. Number two, it's also about your ability to attract and retain customer. So when you're thinking about the ecosystem in which an MSME operates, number one, your product needs to be wanted by the market. No, somebody or a group of people need to want to buy your product. If nobody wants to buy your product, the conversation about access to finance actually is not even going to start, because you need to have an addressable market. And the larger that addressable market is, the better it is for you as an MSME to demonstrate to a potential funder that you have a market for which you need to expand. Therefore, you require additional capital. And technology can help do that. So when financial institutions, fintechs are trying to move MSMEs from cash to digital payments, there is an interesting value in that, which has to do with your ability to demonstrate in the language that the financial system understands, with data, that your company is moving money, the goods and services that you're providing are actually being bought, used by clients, and then by asking for additional capital, it's either working capital or capital for expenditure. You have the ability, because the numbers actually tell a story that you can back up by your qualitative narrative. And that's what technology is enabling micro, small enterprises that have embraced digital payments to do. Of course, we saw this wave during COVID-19, and that has continued well beyond COVID-19. And research has shown that most companies that were not part of the digital economy have suffered in the ability to retain or attract new customers during the period where most of us were in lockdown.
Thank you so much, Carl. You somehow touched the COVID, which we somehow forget to address it, because it was one of the difficult times when it comes to MSMEs. Because MSMEs usually, like we said, they don't have much access to finance, even to recover from what they've been through while in the COVID time. So it's good to actually highlight on that. So maybe for traffic. So now you guys are planning to join to the Ethiopian market. So when we see the market, what are the key challenges that you actually observe, like in terms of coming in and then operating in Ethiopia? Some people say the parallel market, which is the what do you call it, the black market. So can you list them? What are the key challenges when you think of Ethiopian market? I mean, we've been talking about the opportunities, of course. You guys coming in and investing in Ethiopia, but what are the key challenges?
Okay. Though the Ethiopian financial market is thriving, though the Ethiopian financial market has moved a lot this past 10 years, the financial market is still underdeveloped, and it's still underutilized to multi-dimensional challenges, such as collateral-heavy private loans, limited access to risky capital for early-stage venturing, the government policies that restrict foreign direct investments. In addition, the burdensome customs administrative procedures, the high cost of logistics, and access to credit and foreign exchange are the major challenges that I see for SMEs. And then sometimes you don't blame the banks, because if central banks take 70% of the foreign currency generated by every bank, and the banks are left with only 30%, sometimes banks are also in a position that they will not be in a position to support SMEs, even corporates, even say, with the limited resources that they are given. Second, the deposits mobilization for Ethiopian banks. In Ethiopia, we are not that much encouraged in saving, because our money does not have the value to buy after saving. The savings is not encouraged. After saving, maybe after a year, when you see the value of your money, it has already lost its value. So people are not encouraged to save money, because the inflation rates and the devaluation rates is not coping up with the interest rate that we're getting. So banks are not also in a position to serve their customers abundantly with the lack of FX and savings. Maybe allow me to address one of the questions that have been raised by Mr. Emmanuel and Maseret in regard to some MSMEs. In Equity, let me tell you about our experience during the COVID-19 pandemic. With the support from our various partners in Equity Bank, we had positioned ourselves to support MSMEs to keep their lights during the COVID-19 pandemic, which had slowed down the economy negatively. It had impacted the cash flow of most of SMEs. So in order to solve this, we had extended our credit to them. Also, even did the repayment period to be extended. So Equity has demonstrated its commitment to walking the journey with its customers and its sympathy with the socio-economic situation brought by the pandemic. Despite the heavy impact of the pandemic, Equity has increased its lending books to SMEs. Close to 51% of the loan book was given to MSMEs because Equity put a priority on financing SMEs in agriculture, manufacturing, household, and value chain banking. So we really give emphasis on value chain banking because the value chain banking really supports or really finds a solution for that collateral financing issue. MSMEs often face a host growth challenges, including managing and enabling financial transactions, access to credits, and expanding their reach. So in order to solve this challenge, Equity has fortified its product offerings by providing them with customized, flexible, and integrated banking solutions for both business owners and employees. Equity has grown from being a microfinance, a building society, and a bank. We have to innovate and find solutions for MSMEs and our clients. So we had structured approach by deliberating supporting to transition entrepreneurs from micro and small enterprises to customs value proposition. So every time there is a challenge, Equity has positioned itself in finding solutions for all its customers, including MSMEs and corporates, in finding solutions in problems. All problems definitely will bring solutions. And the value chain financing has really, really helped us in alleviating the centralized based funding requests that are really requested by most of the banks. Over to you, Sami.
Thank you so much, Rafil. I have one question for both of you. Maybe I'll give the floor for Mr. Khan first. Any recommendation from a policy standpoint to the regulatories, like we have the National Bank of Ethiopia, in terms of opening up the banking sector, how fast or how slow? Do you have any recommendation on that?
I think it's looking at what other countries have done to really strengthen the fintech ecosystem, because for banks, maybe the cost to go to the micro might be too high. So there is an opportunity for that connection to be made. So I think, fintechs represent an opportunity. We're seeing it across the continent and certainly in Ethiopia. And that's why we're bringing Visa Everywhere initiative to Ethiopia will be an important area and sector to look into.
Okay, maybe for me, in addition to the fintechs, the payment service providers, like the likes of Kacha, like the likes of Telebir and M-Pesa, I think if they come and then if they did their homework right, I think they will definitely miss or find a solution for the missing gap, because these guys, even when they come, they will definitely bring some solutions that we have never seen. And in this market, I think there's a lot to do. Maybe we need also to give an appreciation to the current government, because they have thought of opening up the financial sector. So the opening of the financial sector will bring both opportunities and threats to the banks. So opportunities will really be beneficial to the Ethiopian public, whereby access to capital and access to foreign currency will be beneficial, because not only the money not only the paid-up capital these banks bring, but also the international companies and the investors that will follow the international banks will definitely bring additional foreign direct investment to the country, whereby this FDI will bring FX, employment, and reserves of boost of deposits to the financial institutions, whereby it's a market and an opportunity for all MSMEs and the public in general.
Thank you, Surafil. So I've been receiving so many questions. Some of them are already addressed. I'm still accepting questions from my own. So we've been talking about the MSME financing and whatnot. So when it comes to MSME financing, when we think of inclusivity and access to finance, innovation is the key. So when you think of innovation, there is always a regulation behind. So what do you think about regulation? Because like, what kind of regulation mechanism should we use? Because like we've seen like regulations that actually say no, and they prepare their regulations and then they open up, and some of them just are low and then they their regulations. But let's talk about regulation and innovation. What are the best way to mitigate those two things, regulation and innovation? Over to you, Karl.
I won't say mitigate innovation and regulation. I think there needs to be a constant dialogue between the regulator and the ecosystem in terms of what changes are required in the ecosystem. And sometimes regulation can be one that observe to see what are the changes and then sort of help in addressing the issue that's been. In other cases, the regulator will come and say, this is how I think the ecosystem needs to evolve. So from my perspective, it's important that you have a constant dialogue between the different actors in the ecosystem with the regulator so that decisions are made based on the changes that we want to see in the ecosystem, but also based on the framework that will certainly enable innovation. Because the good thing about innovation is that we're not necessarily certain in terms of what we're going to be able to get, but the ability to have a policy framework that is enabling innovation, keeping in mind, of course, that the regulator has a specific role in the market, is certainly the way to go. So my advice on this element is really to focus on the constant dialogue between different parts. The basis for regulation, because there are and a lot of different cases around the world, very large market, 100 million. The basis for very strong companies that are fashion, the basis for regulation that needs to be put in place. And Ethiopia, of course, is a very large market with 100 million people, very strong companies that already exist. So it means that for the newcomers into the market, they find an opportunity to collaborate, to cooperate with the existing ones. And not everybody is actually fully served at the moment in the market, which means that there's an opportunity for more. So it's really about dialogue and finding ways to make sure that innovation helps to solve a real problem in society.
Thank you so much, Karl. Maybe Surafil, if you have anything to add on this.
Okay, maybe in addition to what Karl has said, when regulations are issued in Ethiopia, they're just done because the regulator thinks that there's a threat to the financial market. I really believe if there is a consultation forum among parties or among players, it will definitely find a way where they can alleviate many problems. Benchmarking is also another way of doing things. If the regulator has a way they can benchmark ways of doing business or good ways of running business in the rest of Africa. So benchmarking will definitely find ways in which we can solve our problem.
Thank you so much, Surafil. If there is anyone who wants to raise any question or remark or recommendation, yeah, this is the right time for you guys. If not, so last remark from Rosa Augustus. Do you have any final thoughts on the topic? SMEs in Africa, in Ethiopia. Last remark.
Well, first, again, thank you very much for the invitation to participate in this conversation. It's always useful to. Final thought for me is, number one, we need to buy from our MSMEs on the continent because we cannot talk about wanting to support them, but we probably not buying enough from the micro, small and medium enterprises. You can't fix the issue on the quality. We're not buying and supporting that. We buy from our local micro, small, and medium enterprises in Ethiopia and across the continent. The second one is technology and digitization of processes, being from running the operation, but also from the money movement perspective, are really critical in helping the conversation around access to markets, but also access to funding or access to capital. And then the third one is, what are the skills and competencies that are required for MSMEs to thrive in the digital economy? Those for me will be the three closing remarks that I want to put to the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Surafi?
Also, thank you for the invite. Maybe my last remarks is that, honestly, in Africa, MSMEs can definitely help in reducing unemployment in Africa by creating jobs. They are stimulus of economic growth in the rest of the world, so we need to take advantage of that. Additionally, we need to encourage them by providing trainings because they need that in regards to financial literacy and everything. So we have, including me, we have a job to do that so that they have the right way of accessing finance. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rafi. Today we've been discussing about MSMEs and access to finance for them. So we've been addressing access to finance, access to market, and also the opportunities that are coming in, like African continental free trade areas, we mentioned them, and also the two visa initiatives, which is the visa initiatives. We already have the link there on the chat box, so you guys can actually go through and go there and then get access to know and to learn more about the visa initiatives, and also the business model for the Equity Bank and their experience in getting into new markets. We've been discussing about those, and so thank you so much all the invited guests, specifically for Mr. Kyle and Mr. Surafi, for giving us a chance to briefly and precisely to give us a brief explanation about all the questions that we raised from our own office and also from the entire audience, and of course the audience itself. Thank you so much, everyone. This is not our first and this is not our last, so we're going to have another session with another guest next month, so let's keep in touch. Subscribe our social media platforms, Arifpay, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. We are everywhere, so you can actually get all the information that you need. And this webinar will also have been recorded, so we're gonna upload it to in our YouTube channel so that you can actually go and see the discussion. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a blessed Tuesday. Thank you all.